So welcome everyone. My name is Malika Silcott, and you are joining our second professional in residence from the Tufts Career Center. It is my pleasure to welcome our alum, Charles Wartenberg, who is the head of product at Microsoft, and he's joining us from Seattle, Washington, over there on the West Coast. For those of you who have never been to a professional in residence before, we like to have these programs as a way to connect current students and potentially alumni to alumni who are working in the field so that you hear one-on-one kind of their story from Tufts or through Tufts to where they are right now. Also on the call is Robin Khan, who is our career advisor for the School of Engineering, and she's going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions throughout, there will be a question and answer period, maybe around 11:40 or so. But if you do have a question that comes up, feel free to put it in the chat. If you're feeling a little bit shy, you can private message me, Malika Silcott, or Robin Khan with your question. All right, so I am going to read our guest's bio. So Charles Wartenberg is both an engineer and a storyteller. He is currently a product manager working on helping employees discover, connect, and grow at Microsoft. In this role, he leads product design, development, and global implementation in partnership with stakeholders from engineering, design, services, and LinkedIn. His experience has included product management and product marketing roles on products within Xbox, Windows, and Office. Prior to Microsoft, Charles worked at Amazon in Seattle and McMaster Carl Supply Co. in Chicago. Charles received his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Tufts University, and he also completed an MBA with a concentration in statistics, econometrics, and managerial and organizational behavior from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. Charles, who describes himself as a proud Ghanaian and African, is passionate about technology and mentoring. As a lifelong learner with a bias for action, Charles' mission is to lead innovative products and unlock the potential of the next generation. So without any further ado, it's my pleasure to give the presentation and the floor to Charles Wartenberg, fellow Jumbo.
Hey, welcome, Tough Nation. So great to be here. Literally, I remember walking the halls of Anderson day one, being in Robin's office without a resume or what I thought was a resume. Attended my first career fair, just being super confused because after 3 to 4 years of Tufts experience, I was about to go out into the real world and I had no plan. But thankfully, Robin was able to hold my hand and shepherd me through, which I know she's doing with you all now, with Malika also. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to come back to Tufts to talk with you. As you can tell, we are all probably at home behind a computer listening to this presentation. The world has changed. That is just a fact, and I acknowledge that. But in this conversation, I wish to just share my journey, share some lessons learned, talk a bit about product marketing and product management, and also to encourage you because similar to you, I finished Tufts in '09, which was right in the midst of the financial crisis. So I have some kind of experience in how to be thinking about the workforce when it looks like the world has changed. Obviously, not in your shoes, but I'll try my best to kind of share some insights learned. But before I start my presentation, let's just give a huge kudos to the Tufts Career Center and Robin and Malika for this opportunity for just being here, being a resource for all, not just current, but also future and past jumbos. The Career Center is a resource that exists as anyone who is part of the Tufts family. So let's just give a huge shout out and gratitude to Robin and Malika for all they do. So to kick
Thank
us off for our conversation today, I'll start by introducing myself, talk about my journey from Tufts to tech, a little bit of my family. Then I'll talk about breaking into technology, specifically around product marketing and product management. Fun fact, I didn't think I'll be working in technology, but I'll talk about that in my presentation. And then lastly, I'll talk about insights on how to keep learning in the tech industry. What do you realize with the tech industry is you have to be a lifelong learner. 10 years, 20 years ago, what was hot is not anymore. But if you have that growth mindset, thinking and learning mindset, which I know Tufts cultivates, in addition to civic leadership, you will do well. And then lastly, we'll leave about 10 minutes for a Q&A. This is a conversation, not a full presentation, so feel free to interact. You can turn off your camera, you can come off mute, you can type in the chat. Let's make this as interactive as possible. Like I shared, the world has changed. Before doing this, I would either be like on campus, talking with you all and soaking in the energy. But now with the power of technology, I can be at home in Seattle and talking with you all over the world. So feel free to interact. You can use the emojis and Zoom if you like something I'm saying, so I emphasize on something, so I can read the room a bit. Okay, so I want to be where I am without my family. My family is the most important thing to me as I think about my journey and everything. My family is kind of that anchor that keeps me grounded. As I rise in my career, I have to balance family and work. It is a balancing act, and there are times where I spend more time at work and more time with my family, but I'm trying. So this is my family. I'm actually married to my high school sweetheart. We got married about 6 years ago, and we have two beautiful kids. Our first Elise was born in 2019, and our second JP arrived 3 weeks ago. So we are doing the whole newborn thing now. So I just wanted to share a big piece of my life and what motivates me. Like Malaka shared, I grew up in Ghana. I'm Ghanaian American, and this picture kind of captures the mood. This was from when the World Cup was played, when Ghana was playing the United States, two World Cups back to back, and had that dual identity. For those of you who are international students at Tufts, know that I kind of had that experience also, and the International Center was very helpful. And the lastly, in terms of education, I'm a proud jumbo, class of '09, engineering grad. And I remember walking Anderson Halls, all the late nights, the 24-hour passes, Tisch Library all nights, fall ball, spring fling, the whole 9 yards. I lived it all. Lived in Sophia Gordon, Hillside, Stratton. I had a blast. I think Tufts really equipped me to, really learn about American culture coming in from overseas. Gave me that engineering foundation and grounding. But most importantly, taught me to be a civic leader. So in all I do, I make sure that I'm really plugged into my community, and I think that's something Tufts does really well, to great grounded civic leaders. So after Tufts, and I'll talk about more of the journey in the next slide, but I was able to also get an MBA along the way. The reason why I did an MBA is I studied mechanical engineering with a minor in economics, but during our senior design project, I realized I enjoyed the focus group and the business strategy and kind of like the how to make money part of engineering more than like actual engineering. So I actually set myself a goal of going to business school 3 years after graduation. And thankfully, I was able to do that. So I went to U Chicago, studied econometrics and statistics, and ended up in tech by accident. And I'll tell you how in the next slide. So I finished college in 2009, like I mentioned, financial crisis. To be honest, I remember senior week, we had a presentation where my classmates were talking about what they were doing after school. Half were going to grad school to do engineering, the other half are jobs, and like 2 or 3 of us didn't have a plan. So I actually finished Tufts without a job. I was freaking out. I didn't really know what to do. So I just went and stayed in my family's place as I figured out what I wanted to do. So long story short, my brother lived in Chicago. I went to visit for 2 weeks, ended up staying 6 years, and that's kind of where I began my professional career. So my first job was at Jump Trading in Chicago, which is a high frequency trading shop. And you think it's like, oh wow, no job to high frequency trading. But what you don't see here is I was actually an intern and I worked in the IT shop, literally doing IT service. So I was building computers, doing pretty much any job I would get. And the kind of key learning from this opportunity, which I did for a couple of months, was you take the best option available. I had to kind of get off my high horse and think, hey, I'm an engineering grad. I should be making X, Y at this flashy company. Why am I, building computers for a financial company? I have an engineering degree. I went to Tufts. But what I really realized in that period of like unemployment was it's not about will you get a job, it's when you get a job. You will work in your lifetime. My dad said it best. He said that, Charlie, when you're long gone and dead, your tombstone will not say, here lies Charles, never worked a day in his life. Back then, I didn't understand, but now I really do. But also when you're in it, it doesn't feel like it. So I'll be super candid. When you're feeling the despair, no job, no opportunity, it's kind of hard to just zoom out and say, this is just a moment in time, things will get better. But I share my story to encourage. So I was in a similar situation where I was about to apply for the Foreign Service, take the GMAT. I really didn't know what I was doing. But thankfully, I was able to, through my family's network, find an opportunity to intern at jump trading. And the key learning here, like I mentioned, is take the best job option available. So after that, I got my first called real job as a company called McMaster Car Supply. So McMaster is about 100+ years old, super old school. They sell industrial supplies. I got in as a product specialist where I was helping answer questions for customers that wanted to buy things. So McMaster sells everything from screws to widgets to things you need in a factory. So for those who are engineers or MEs on this call, you probably have that yellow book or you have seen it in the library in Bray or the shop. So I worked there for about 4 years, and the key learning here was grounding on the fundamentals. What I loved about McMaster was they taught me how to work. They taught me how to be punctual. We had shifts, so I'd come in before 10 minutes before my shift work, take my break in a structured time, and I did that for 4 years and 3 months. The first year and a half, I thought they were being super overbearing. I was like, why am I feeling like I'm in the military? But when I look back, two things. I made a lot of my lifelong friends at that company, and I was able to learn the fundamentals that helped me be a really good professional, which is attention to detail, punctuality, all the things that Robin and Malika are probably preaching. We really need to hone in because when you go in from college to the workforce, in college you have the chance to go to class or not go to class. You get to go to class or check your phone, but when you're working, the difference is you pay to go to school, but when you're working, they pay you to show up. So when you're showing up, you have to really show up. So I was in Chicago. As I got comfortable with McMaster, the economy got better. Some friends and I decided to do a startup. So we decided to do a t-shirt company or invest in a t-shirt company. And through that experience, I learned a lot about myself. The key learning there was ideas are easy, but it's all about implementation. So as you're thinking about what you want to do in your career, you have a ton of ideas, a lot of energy. Implementation is kind of where the rubber hits the road. But the key thing here is to write them all down. If you write it down and start building a plan, it's able to be implemented. But if it's just all blue sky thinking without a plan, it's hard to implement. One thing I learned from my startup time is how to work on a beer budget. We had champagne ideas, but a beer budget. So how to be really economical and sell and do street festivals in Chicago was one of the key things that I learned from there. So fast forward, lived in Chicago for about 6 years, spent the last two getting my MBA, and I was thinking about what to do after MBA. I wanted to work in oil and gas because I wanted to live the international expat life. I thought it was exciting. I interviewed for all the four oil majors. They all said no. So what you see in this slide looks like great progression, but what you don't see are the jobs I didn't get. I have been rejected for more jobs than jobs I have gotten. I have sent tons of emails, tons of pings on LinkedIn. People hear back, sometimes you don't hear back. So I share that as you're in your job search mode, either for the seniors and also for the juniors looking for internships. What do you see are what I got? You don't see what I didn't get. So I just say that it's all about just having patience and understanding, and it's like baseball. You just want to have a lot at bats, then you improve your batting average. So from Chicago to tech, I thought I was going to be in oil and gas. They all said no. I applied to Microsoft and Amazon, and guess what? Amazon gave me a job. So I decided, I guess it's not oil, it's going to be tech. So I packed up my stuff and I left Chicago April 1st, 2015 to move to Seattle, Washington, where I started my tech career. Amazon is a fantastic company. My key learning there is move fast. It is always day one. Jeff Bezos says that a lot, but it's literally true. Amazon is a group of small companies under the Amazon umbrella, and every team runs pretty autonomously and it's fast. So after Amazon, I moved to Microsoft, and that's where I've spent the bulk of my career there. So this is year 6 at Microsoft. And at Microsoft, what I really have learned or I'm learning is the power of a growth mindset. Our CEO, Satya Nadella, came in 2014, and rather than focus on products, he focused on the culture and people. And he kind of brought this theory of the power of a growth mindset. What that means, so Growth Mindset is a book by Carol Dweck, a Stanford professor. And the thesis here is it's not about I cannot do something, it's I cannot do something yet. Having this growth mindset of I don't know what to do, but this is my plan to go learn. So it's a really powerful mindset that once you have, helps you kind of really do well and scale regardless of the impediments or challenges. And in some slides, I'll kind of show you what it takes to be a product manager, and you will see like a lot of things. But I use that growth mindset that I just talked about to really chunk it down into smaller pieces to implement over time. So that's kind of the journey, and like I shared, it looks super linear, but it's a sine wave. I didn't have a plan. Um, every job was, considered as it came. There was no grand plan. I did a tough saying, I'm going to do this for 3 years, and this for 4 years, and this for 2 years. Tough people are super smart, super ambitious, and throughout your whole life, you've been like structured. But what do you realize when you get to the workforce is there's a bit more unstructured, and every 12, 18 to 24 months, you evaluate opportunities. As I said at Microsoft now, I get pinged on LinkedIn all the time. I take most of the calls to keep learning, but am I ready to leave? Probably not. But I just shared that to say, you make a plan, but understand the plan you make is just a framework and be flexible to modify. As you're looking for opportunities, you may be thinking of grad school or go get a job, go do an internship, go do a PhD. Write them all down in sequence and work them all to see what works. You're only as good as your options. So at Microsoft, let me talk a bit about what I do. So like I shared, I'm head of product for one of our products that we're building that helps employees discover, connect, and grow. It actually sits in the HR world in partnership with LinkedIn. But before this role, I've had a bunch of different jobs at Microsoft. I started off in Xbox, helping them forecast Xbox. Then I moved to Windows, where I did product marketing for Windows Hello and Windows Defender. So think of our core security products. Then my career pivoted into product management, where I was tasked with building new products for the Office 365 suite, which I hope you use versus Google Suite. And in that experience, I think was really exciting because we leveraged human-centered design to build products that people wanted. So versus in the past where a bunch of engineers get into a room with ideas of what we think people want, what Microsoft is doing now is we're actually listening to people, we're doing research to understand what are human needs and pain points and trying to build solutions around that. So specifically for me, I was tasked with the phrase peace of mind. Um, and the goal was to increase Office 365 subscriptions from X to Y. So given that phrase and some funding and told to figure it out, what do you realize in the working force is it's not as structured. In college, you get a syllabus, you get a week, the midterm and the final. When you work over time, it gets very unstructured. Obviously, I'm now a senior person, so I'm able to work in ambiguity. So the more senior you get, the more ambiguity you get. So I got a phrase in the bag of cash, and with research, with systems thinking, I was able to innovate in that space to deliver new product value for Microsoft. Things like OneDrive Personal Vault, things like money in Excel, things like password management are all product features that came out from our research. And when I say our research, you don't work by yourself. You work in a group. So I work with finance, data science, strategy, marketing, name it. In a tech company, about 30 or 40% of the people actually code. The rest of the people don't code. So as you're thinking about jobs in technology, I know we have some Swedes on the call. That's great. But even if you're not a SWE or dev, don't worry about it. There's opportunity in technology. So that's kind of what I've done at Microsoft so far. It's super exciting. Every day is different. There are days where I'm down, the days that I'm up, but fundamentally they're more up than down days. Malika kind of alluded to my mission, which is to unlock the potential of the next generation, which is you all on this call. So kind of my sweet spot is people and products. And in all the opportunities I've taken, I really try to hone in there. So what you see here is I talk about my mission, what I do at Microsoft. I'm not showing software, I'm showing people. because fundamentally it's all around the people that you leverage, the people who leverage your work, and how others can leverage your work. So you think about it from a opportunity standpoint. Every day in tech is different. Some pictures here that I showed to illustrate. Top left, between my first and second role at Microsoft, I actually created an app that was think of Tinder for jobs. I was looking for a job. I was having a lot of coffee chats internally, so I decided to use technology in a company to solve a problem. And I share that to say that was that one thing that really kind of skyrocketed my career. So as you're, looking for opportunities, be testing out new things, tinkering. It's now so easy to build anything with GitHub and LinkedIn and lead code, and the world is on your fingertips. So I just shared to say that just typing in Google or Bing, how to be blah, gives you so many resources. But in that so many resources, sometimes can get paralyzing and overwhelming. So I also acknowledge that. So I've been able to present to teams, and then on the top right, I'm big on recruiting. So I like to joke my second job at Microsoft is a recruiter and just like public speaker. So on the top right, I was able to attend a radio show that one of our recruiting team has to just talk about my story and my journey. On the bottom left, with a group of people, that was a hackathon we did a couple of years ago, where we built an app to help people grow their career. And the lady you see in the middle is the head of HR for Microsoft, so the CHRO of Microsoft. We have a science fair where people come and showcase their ideas. So even at work, we have some times where it feels like you're in college, where you take a week off school and then you just hack something and present it. And then in the middle is me talking about culture. And I think as you're looking for opportunity, it's a really important thing to look at. So I think the code here is above it all, the most important factor is culture. I encourage you to research the company's culture and map it to your personal values. So as you're going through this kind of exploratory mode, you don't really know what your mission is, but you know things that interest you, things you're passionate about. Write it down. You know what your values are. Write it down, and then over time you start having this thesis and understanding what your mission is and what matters to you. What you see unlock the potential of the next generation was 5 to 10 years in the making. I just didn't come out of Tufts with a clearly defined mission. So something just to call out. I'm not saying go do it, but think of just write and jot notes down. And then now to the meat and potatoes of our presentation, product marketing and product management. How did I land in it? I'll be super honest, I landed in it by accident. My first role in product marketing was after my hackathon, where a mentor said, you have the ability to tell stories and you like technology, consider working in product marketing. And I said, what is that? She said, talk to someone. So she connected with someone. I talked and I had a role. So I shared that to say there was not a master plan. It all happened over chance, but through some people connection. So at the highest level, product marketing managers, or PMM for short in tech, partner with engineering and other stakeholders to deliver new value to customers. So think about it as you're either building a new product or building an existing product, and you're talking to customers, doing in-person interviews, or now I'll say Zoom interviews, to understand what their needs are in partnership with the research team. From those insights, you then build upon and partner with engineering to figure out what you want to add to the product roadmap. There are two types of product marketers, or PMMs. There's inbound and then outbound. So for the engineering folks on this call, inbound is more close to like engineering, because you're working with customers and engineering on how to shape and build new products. And then outbound marketing is, think of your traditional like Marcom person. Because when you think of a marketer, I just thought of Mad Men. That was a show that was big back in my day. So you think of, working with advertisers and, TV adverts and all these campaigns. But I would say that's more of the outbound world, where you're writing copy, blogs, campaigns, and working more with that external thing to amplify. So that can be in product, website, and now also social copy. So there's two types of product marketers, one that work more with engineering and one that work more with traditional marketing. And then when you think about product management is, it's been around for a while now, but I would say it's kind of really become peak mainstream in tech. You know, companies like Google and Facebook are product shops where they have these APMs, associate program managers, or rotational program manager opportunities that really train young or early grads on careers in product management. But I would say the product manager function is very rewarding. It's a jack of all trades, master of none. And then in the next slide, I'll kind of show you what exactly like you do. But fundamentally, you marshal the resources of a team to deliver business impact through products. You derive impact through shipping product at the highest level. And if you think of an analogy, a product manager works with engineering via spec documents. So that's like specking out the product or the feature, what exactly you're building, for who, for why, and how would it look like. And product marketing connects with customers via research. So that's a nice analogy to simplify what is quite complex. Like I shared, in technology, you have to leverage the great work of others, like in college, and give attribution. So this is a slide that I put together yesterday from one of my favorite product thinkers on Twitter. His name is Shreyas Doshi. He's a PM lead at Stripe. He's worked at, I think, Google and Snapchat before. And literally, he doesn't know it, but he's one of my product teachers. And I connect with him on Twitter and LinkedIn. So from left to right, Shreyas describes product management as define the product and coordinate actions across the org to enable its success. And what does success mean? It's usually adoption and business impact. And what are the skills you need to be a good product manager or product marketer? For the purpose of simplification, I've combined product marketing and product management into one because on the right it kind of explains all those things. But the skills is common sense, immense empathy, influential communication. What do you notice here is we're not talking about how fast you can type or how much you can code or how smart you are. It's literally like empathy. So think of the IQ and the EQ. These are all EQ skills. And everyone on this call, the fact you got into Tufts means you have these skills. Common sense, empathy, communication. So understand that a career in product management is available. Breaking in is challenging, but that career is available. And in terms of traits, low ego, deep care, high agency. Once again, Tufts people, super humble, super chill, civic leaders. So we have, or Tufts encourages to develop these traits. So keep honing on them. I think the high agency is super important, deep care, low ego. One thing I've started talking to my teams about is assume good intent. So things happen all the time, especially now that we are all at home, seeing each other on a small screen. So whenever anything happens that makes me upset, and I do get upset sometimes, I tell myself, chill Charles, assume good intent. And then last but not least, it seems simple, but it is not easy. Product management is a very rewarding career, pays well. It's simple, but it's not easy. And on the right is think of the map of the skills you need to be an effective PM. This is, think of Mark Zuckerberg or the head of product for a tech company as having 80 to 90% of these skills. And think of as an early career PM having maybe 2 or 3 of these skills built out. So I put this in my OneNote and I track this quarterly where when I'm looking for areas to continue growing in the spirit of growth mindset, I look at the areas I'm strong in and then I map out the areas I want to get better in. So the highest level is product sense, analytical sense, execution sense, product vision and strategy. And then on the right side is commercial, PM management, communication, and critical thinking. I'll say as early in career, think of that first branch, all the things I talked about, and then he breaks out into what it means. Figure out what you feel makes sense to you or what naturally you think you have, and check them and keep working on them. And then also pick maybe 1 or 2 that you want to focus and grow on. And one might be thinking on this call, why should I be working on this if I'm not a PM yet? The PM skill set translates to any job and function. Because what you're seeing here, there's nothing here that's talking about code. Anyone, Rob and Malika can apply these kind of thinking frameworks in their work to make it better. So the PM skill sets are very fungible and they apply across all industries. So something to think about. And then also try not to overwhelm yourself and saying I need to be 80% and 90% and all this. It's just Step one is understanding the skill sets required. Step B is kind of mapping where you are. And also, someone may be thinking, I don't have a job. Why should I care about these skills? These are the questions you receive in your interview. They may not call it product sense, analytical sense, or execution sense, but they will ask you about, tell me about a time you showed self-discipline. Tell me about a time you solved a problem. Tell me about a time, you get it? So all the tell me about questions you're seeing are kind of derived from this. So this is also a great way to prep for interviews where you take your projects, your internships, your skill sets, and leverage that one word answer of like, hey, let me tell you a story about prioritization. Let me tell you a story about listening or writing. This can also help you as an interview guide. So I'm going to wrap up in a bit and then I'll take some questions from the audience. I love to leave all my audiences with a product toolkit. So I don't like to just talk. I want to make sure I'm leaving you with things that you can go do today, right now. So the first is our frameworks and templates. So the product kind of thinking or product management. There are two things that I really like. A guy named Lenny, he was a former PM at Airbnb. He has this fantastic template. So if you just Google Lenny, you can find this, and we'll send a deck out so you can click the links. The way we map our work is using jobs to be done or OKRs. Social, let's talk about social media. Social media is not just for posting on the gram or your Finsta or tweeting or all the new things in this. It can also be a great place you learn. Like I shared, I follow Shreyas on Twitter and I learn a lot from him. So as someone who's looking for opportunities and starting their career, the two places that I really kind of gravitate towards is Twitter and LinkedIn. Back when I was in college, Twitter didn't exist. I'm aging myself. LinkedIn existed, but it was kind of like that thing where you just like throw in your resume, didn't really worry about it. So I want to walk through both platforms in detail. So think of Twitter as a group chat for entire world. Anything that interests you in the topic, be it nonprofit, healthcare, tech, anything, you can follow the leaders of the company and those companies on Twitter and engage when applicable. So you can see what the things they're posting. You can also get insights on opportunities, programs, and hackathons. So, think of the old like a company will say, hey, we're opening an application for this, or a product leader in company X or Y in Boston can say, hey, loving this, going to this, engage when applicable, be polite, comment, because that also gives you a way to, stand out or connect with. So Twitter is really fascinating. I was super scared of Twitter 3 years ago because all I knew about Twitter was that's where people get fired for saying dumb stuff. So that kind of made me hold back. But in the spirit of growth mindset, I said, you know what? Get a Twitter account and listen. Like you can get fired for listening in. So that's what I started by doing. And as I got more comfortable, I would share an opinion here and there, but fundamentally, I use that to just read and keep in touch with the tech world. Because like I mentioned before, it's always changing and super dynamic. Moving on to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your online resume, similar to GitHub for devs. If you are a college student who doesn't have a LinkedIn profile, please, please, please talk to Robin, talk to Malika, get a LinkedIn profile. And I don't say this because I work at Microsoft and Microsoft owns LinkedIn, but anytime, anything with work, the first thing people do is check you out on LinkedIn. So make sure you have a profile, a picture, modify your resume, put some stuff on LinkedIn, start building a presence. Look at the LinkedIn profiles from alums, and then kind of use that to modify to build your profile, but connect with the Tufts Alumni Network, the Tufts Career Center. Use that Tufts brand as you start your journey because it's super powerful. And then also, as you're thinking about where you are now, share insights, blog about the projects you're working on, be it a senior design project, be it something you've seen or a problem you've seen. Write about how you would solve it as a product manager or someone who cares about it, because by sharing your insights, you also contribute to the dialogue. Robin shared before the call. The reason she reached out is I put public speaking on my resume and I started talking a lot on LinkedIn this year. So I came on her radar. So this is a great example of me just taking that step, being a bit more engaged and active on LinkedIn, led to this opportunity to come speak with you today. So the power of LinkedIn is bar none. The power of Twitter to continue to learn and engage is super powerful. And then I know it's not all about social. Now there's these things called podcasts and blogs. So here are some podcasts that I listen to that help me just keep in touch with trends and tech and things that are going on. First is How I Built This, Guy Raz. This talks about the story of entrepreneurs and their struggles and their challenges. It's super, super interesting to listen to. I listen to it either when I'm like cooking or cleaning or doing my chores. So think about during your commute or doing something. It's a great way to just listen or learn without like being behind a desk. Another podcast I like is Pivot by Recode. Two guest hosts, Kara Swisher, Scott Galloway, have a pretty, irreverent take on tech and what's happening. So if you want to keep in touch on like what's going on, the newest thing now is NFT, which is non-fungible tokens, which I do not understand. People are selling tweets and pictures and videos online pegged on the blockchain for money. I don't understand that you go 10 years behind when blockchain happened. I didn't understand that too, and that has become something. Medium.com is a great place for long form articles where people write about breaking into tech, breaking into company X, Y, Z. So as you're looking for a playbook, Medium definitely has some content there. The first one review just has good content on thriving and surviving at work. And then the HBR just has these good, deeply researched articles on things that are important. So I've kind of arranged them from small, medium, high. So start small, and then you can add things as you continue to go on. And then lastly, I'd like to end with some career insights before we take some questions from the audience. And I do hope you ask questions because it's the fun part of this. Get ready to come off mute, show your camera if you can. But like I shared before, I've been super blessed and fortunate in my career. When I was a young chap at Tufts, walking the hills, climbing the stairs and going to the library, I had no idea this what things would turn out to be. I was just this super random guy from Ghana at Tufts, and I was just happy to be there. And I look back at the last, 10, 12 years, it's just been quite a ride. I look at, coming out from a recession, financial crisis, trying to figure myself out, getting a job, getting some confidence, getting a second degree, and being a dad and a father and working in tech. And as I progress, I do less like busy work, but more of like building high performing teams and thinking about strategy and culture. But one thing that Microsoft does that I really like is our performance is determined by the work you do, how you leverage the work of others, and how others leverage your work. So think about those three circles. So it's, what you do, how you leverage from others with accreditation, and how others leverage your work. Maybe think about your career from those three circles. It's really helpful because you will always assume good intent. So the first thing is, I've mentioned this in my presentation. Careers are not linear. Everyone's journey is different and timeline is different. My career is a bit of a sine wave, but over time it started becoming like this. So I would say be patient with yourself. Understand that everyone's journey is different. You may have some friends and colleagues who are getting into grad school, fantastic internships, great opportunities. Root for them, learn from them, but understand that everyone's journey is different. The next is technology is a meritocracy, but it is not perfect. My industry is not diverse. I am usually the only person in the room that looks like me, and it's interesting. But I would say fundamentally, I do believe that you get in by your merits and you rise with your impact. My career has been a testament to that. But fundamentally, nothing is perfect. I do my part in talking to young people, doing recruiting, doing interviews to help make it better. But understand that it is a meritocracy as much as it can be, and your impact helps you rise, irrespective of your age or the experience you have. It's all about the impact. And last but not least, help one another and give back. I think be kind, help folks out and give back. It's super awesome for me to clear out my day to give back. When Malika reached out, she's like, "Are you interested?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" I mean, Tufts gave me a fantastic opportunity, gave me a ton of money to go to Tufts, and giving back to me is just like I'm so happy to be with all of you here today. Kind of like a full circle thing. So just think about those three things. And as you talk to other people and meet other folks in your journey, they'll also give you different insights. Mine are no means perfect. It's just stuff that I've observed from my lens. And I share that in the spirit of contributing to your success. And I look forward to connecting with you all. So with that, we would like to kind of end the presentation part of this and open up for Q&A. If you want to connect with me, I'm available on the Twitter at Wartenberg, LinkedIn, same. And then this year, I actually started blogging hot takes on career, thriving at work, and product management. So in true millennial fashion, I created an Instagram account for my series that I call On with Charles. You can also find that on LinkedIn, hashtag On with Charles. With that, I'd like to hand it back to Malika, who I think is going to moderate the Q&A part of this.
Great. Thank you so much, Charles, for your very insightful presentation. A lot of good tips for things that students can do now in the Career Center and things to think about as they're thinking about internships and jobs. So we did collect some questions from people when you registered, but we just got one question in the chat, so I think I'd start with that. So I'll just read it. Right after college, Charles, what are some of the most vital areas to grow in? And should students aim to focus on technical growth or leadership and empathetic growth that you were describing in your presentation?
I'll say the former. When you get out of university, you just want to get into a place that has opportunity for you to learn. You want to, just hone in your craft, get more at bats. So I'd say focus on the growth opportunity, be it technical or not. And then the leadership slash empathetic stuff comes over time. You have your values, so be it candor, be it transparency that you exhibit day to day on the job. But I'd say focus on a place that gives you a lot of opportunity to just do things. They may not be sexy, they may not be glamorous, but the fact that someone is paying you to show up to do something is a privilege. And focus more on just getting those opportunities to do whatever it is you're paid to do. Growth comes with doing, and then as you're like growing and kind of expanding, you start thinking about what values do you see from your leaders that you want to mimic. So a lot of like my leadership philosophy and framework are mimicking people that I have seen that I like. You notice my bio has a bias for action. That is one of the Amazon leadership principles. It really resonated with me, so I picked and made it my own. So that's kind of my point of view here in terms of get an opportunity that allows you to just do stuff. And as you're doing, you're growing. And then the leadership empathetic growth, you observe, you mimic, you see, and then you start creating your framework of what is important to you.
Okay. We also have another question that just came in, direct message to me. So there are some different majors on the call. I know that when we registered, there were people who were mechanical engineers, computer scientists, people who are undecided. But for those people who are seniors, what tips do you have for seniors who don't have currently any plans post-graduation?
Yeah, for seniors who are still trying to figure out what to do after graduation, it's list what your options are. So leverage the engineering thinking. I think what is a super, I don't, do mechanical engineering in my day job, but what I do every day is critical thinking and framework thinking. So all the courses from fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, EN1, ES2, all those things that literally spent a lot of time in the lab. What it teaches you is how to break down problems into chunkable, work them in series of parallel, and then connect them back for impact. So kind of look at your career search as an engineering problem or as a problem and break it out into the chunks. First is what do you want to do, what your options are, the plan you want to do, and the feedback loop, but also talking with people who are in similar buckets. So currently you can have like a group chat with your friends where you're all like going through the interview process, doing interview preps with each other, resume presentation with each other. But I would say solve it like an engineering problem where you kind of break down the options. Options can be grad school, internship, volunteering, teach for America, and then map out what kind of makes sense for you. Order them by priority, and obviously like their considerations because money is like an important topic. Like if you're in a situation where you need to make money after school and you can't really optimize for like something awesome or like something that you would like to do, understand that maybe I may have to, do a job, either drive an Uber or do something to get me some cash as I'm trying to do what else I want to do, especially in like careers in public service. I know compensation is a bit quite low. So think around like what your options are and having two or three options that you can then pull from. And also reach out to alums. Most Tufts alums will love to connect with you. But the call out here is because we are all on Zoom or Teams calls the whole day. The whole can I have 20 minutes to grab coffee is challenging. So, be super specific with your questions. Hey, I see you work at company X. It's one of my target companies. I would like to learn more about opportunities in product Y. This is what I have done so far. So show some research and then the ask. I would love if you could refer me or if you could connect with someone on the team. Be super specific. So craft that first introductory coffee chat into an email to allow folks time to respond. Because when the ask is a coffee chat and a call, that is high. But if it's an email and you follow up in like a week or two, that is a bit easy. Or you say, hey, Tufts alum, internships have opened at your company or opportunities have opened. Here are some things I'm looking at. Here's my resume. I'd love if you could take a peek, give me any feedback, and if you're comfortable and open to do a referral, we'll also love that. Be as direct as you can. Be super targeted because I have been on your side where I would reach out to alums or people, and people don't reach out. Some people reach back, and I definitely pledged that when I was on the other side, I would do my best to respond to as many inbounds. Currently, they're getting a bit challenging with the family, but I try my best to like hop into LinkedIn and accept requests from folks on the Tufts network and leverage all these tools that exist that didn't exist then, from LinkedIn to Twitter to talking to your peers and also alums in your programs that finished a year or two before, because the best way to get a job is through like networking. A lot of my opportunities, even inside Microsoft, has been through someone saying, "Hey, buddy, like come check out this job," because when you know someone or your network with somebody, it just makes it easy. That's where a bit of the bias can also come in, because people who know each other giving themselves jobs
Mm.
creates rooms where people don't really look like too diverse. So that's something we are working on. But fundamentally, it's about networking and connecting with people. So be it the school you went to, the interest, sports is always a good one. Tom Brady works most places. Connecting with people is helpful. And then from that shared commonality, being able to build career opportunities. And also it can be offering your help. So, hey, person X, you work in space Y. I'm super passionate. I have some bandwidth. I'd love to do like a project or some quick research. Do you have any needs? So it's not always about give me this. You can also say, hey, I'm a college kid. I have some time. Sorry, I'm a college student. I have some time. Here are some areas I can volunteer. Are there any opportunities to keep the dialogue going? There's another approach that can work. I think Malika, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So I've received a couple of questions regarding kind of like post-grad plans. So some of them might overlap. So the last question that we got was, is product management a role that is ever available for fresh grads? Or is it a role that you have to go through a certain amount of positions before you actually get something like that?
Great news. It is available for fresh grads. But typically in like the big tech companies, I know like all the FANG and like typical like big name tech companies have like a structured rotational program for product managers that they put people through. But the challenge there is because early in career product opportunities are kind of limited. Those tend to be a bit competitive. So if that's something you're interested in doing, I would say follow the company, follow folks that are a bit early in career in those programs, get a relationship started, and then use that as your springboard to get into those opportunities. If you're like a sophomore, junior, if you're a senior, you have to look at the application deadline for these programs and kind of understand those timelines and apply. So if you go on Medium and go like, product management, early in career, product manager, undergrad, you find a ton of people way smarter than me that have, oh, there you go. Rotational programs have been put in the chat. So just understanding those programs, the timelines, and trying to fit into that structure. Because to get a product job or rotational, you have to plan and prep a bit ahead and make sure you put your best foot forward.
Any other questions for the chat? I can also pull from the questions we got previously. Albert?
Hey, Charles, I have a question. So my name's Albert. I'm currently a senior, majoring in computer science with a minor in entrepreneurship. I'm also interested in product management. I was wondering if there were anything you wish you knew about sort of product management before you started your first day as a product manager.
Whew, fantastic question, and thank you for coming off camera to share your question, Albert. Wish you all the best in your journey. What I wish I knew, I would say, I wish I knew a bit more about what that function was, and I read up on it a bit. My experience was building the plane as you fly it, so pretty high wire, and you have to stick the landing, because if you don't stick it, that's not good. So I would say I wish I had read a book or two about product management. And like I shared, it's something that existed before, but become pretty mainstream the last, I'd say, 5 years. There's this fantastic book that I recommend. It's called Swipe to Unlock. It is written by young product managers. I think one is at Google, one is at Facebook, one is at Microsoft, that talks about product management end to end. I have a copy. I'm yet to read it, but I would say for anyone interested in product early in career, I'll type the book in the chat also. It's a fantastic book because it's written by people who are close in age, and they share kind of their experience. And if you follow them on like Twitter and LinkedIn, you get to see the posts they are making currently also. So definitely, I wish a book like Swipe to Unlock existed, and I wish I had read it. That would be the one kind of feedback I'd like to share.
Yeah, thank you. I also have another question if no one
Sure.
has a question. Well, talking about books, I'm also reading the mindset book you talked about earlier by Carl Dweck right here. So I'm like halfway through the book, and I really enjoy it. But my other question was, what's something that you're proud of that you've accomplished as a product manager at Microsoft?
My job in Microsoft 365, where we're building new products, I would say the first thing that we did was actually the backup experience in Windows was trash, or was not the best. If you type backup in the Windows PC, the experience you saw was two different experiences. And leveraging insights, leveraging research, also leveraging our design team to create like vignettes, we were able to go into an engineering meeting to show them the current experience and propose an alternate experience that made it easy for people. So us, my parents, my grandparents, to easily back up their stuff on their computer. Work with them, and over time, if you type backup in Windows 10, that experience has changed, and the text you see is text that I wrote. So I look at it, and the ability to work on a product or feature that touches billions of people, even my family and friends back home, is super, super, super humbling. So I'll say that's one of my greatest accomplishments in changing the backup experience in Windows and making it easier. Also, I'd say being able to ship new products that people can use in Office 365, like password management, the family safety app, and important to everyone, money. So we have a feature in Excel called Money in Excel. That was a feature that a user needs that came up in our research that we realized we didn't have any product value around money. So working with the team, got a team to raise their hand to go develop product value in money, which led to a template in Outlook called Money in Excel, where you can connect your bank accounts to Excel, so similar to Mint, but in Excel, which is something that most people are pretty familiar with. The last but not least, bonus answer is in 2018, I got a chance to travel back home to Ghana to recruit engineers and PMs, and we were able to hire about 12 people from PMs, devs, good gender mix, to bring them to Microsoft. So I'll say being able to provide opportunities to people that normally would not have been on Microsoft's radar is also pretty high up there in terms of things that I'm super proud to have worked on.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Albert.
So we have time for two more questions, and one of them I just put in the chat. I can read it. So thinking about the long-term perspective or your long-term perspective, what do you think has to change in the engineering and tech fields to make them more welcome for traditionally underrepresented minorities?
Thanks for that question. It's something that super important and super relevant where we are. I would say last year when the George Floyd murder happened was a reckoning moment for technology. I think before that, you don't talk about religion, sex, politics at work, and we kind of stayed within a nice line. But I think when that happened last year, a lot of companies made statements and stance on, acknowledging what had happened and most importantly, a plan to move forward. Technology companies and all companies, or publicly traded companies, exist to provide shareholder value, but also want to have good, um, want to create a good ecosystem and be responsible kind of stewards. In technology, we are very good at measuring things. We measure things and we calculate things all the time. We create servers and products that last 20, 30 years. So I was saying technology, understanding, knowing what to measure, having a plan, and being graded accordingly is something that I'm seeing being done that is helpful. But I'd say it's a multi-pronged approach with some structural things and no easy quick hits. I would say from the engineering and tech fields in the universities, creating opportunities for you know um, underrepresented minorities to be able to stick the landing when they join. So I was when I was at Tufts, we had the program. I think it was the precursor to Best and the Travis Brown in engineering, where um, as you know new to engineering, minorities, you get a community where you can kind of learn and leverage each other. So I'd say universities creating these opportunities for people to um, learn more about engineering. I'll be super transparent. I almost failed my first engineering class, ES2, the one with Excel. I had no idea what I was doing and I almost failed it. And I just wasn't prepared. So I freaked out because I was on scholarship and I was like, if I fail a class, I'm going to lose my scholarship. So I'd say creating opportunities for people to really thrive in universities is kind of that first step because that creates a pipeline to companies. And I'm seeing a lot of organizations from SEO to Inroads to MLT creating these programs that companies can then connect to because one person cannot change the entire system. But if you think about it from a university, early in career, mid, and then senior, all those streams have kind of challenged areas where they can do better. But fundamentally, it's about having a plan and measuring it with data. Because if you're measuring it, you can track it, and then it can be accountable medium to long term. So I'll say those are the changes. Mindset is also important, but I think after last year, I can speak for Microsoft, I can speak for other tech companies, but I saw our leaders really take a thoughtful approach to listening and learning and reading. We actually had book reading clubs in the organizations where people discussed topics. That was really important. And you think about technology, it's New York, East Coast or West Coast. Um, Seattle, Washington, where I live, is not the most diverse place. People who move here to work in tech have culture shock from where to cut my hair, how to find food, culture, and community. So one of the things that Microsoft is doing is we actually have set up an engineering office in Atlanta, which is a city that has a pretty high African American population, to go to where people are versus forcing people to uproot from their family and their systems into a pretty interesting, um, a pretty unique kind of ecosystem culture in Seattle and SF to work in tech. So I'd say it's a problem that I'm happy has become top of mind, and I'm grateful and thankful that companies, not just in tech, but also like in finance, I've also seen this as a gap to look at to make better, because when we do that, it's not just creating opportunity for underrepresented minorities, but for everyone and creating a leveling playing field. So that's kind of my point of view on it. Um, Work needs to be done, but for from what I'm seeing so far, helpful and more to go.
Great. So we're kind of going a little bit over. I do want to ask like one burning question because you said also that it's important to you in terms of the diversity. So you shared with us that while at Tufts, you were an international student. And Robin and I surely get questions from students about whether there are any success stories of students that were international or even underrepresented in different fields. And certainly in front of us, you are a successful product of Tufts. So what advice do you have for international students who might feel like, you know, it's kind of hard to find an internship, especially after the administration that we had? You know, what advice do you have for international students to keep them
Yeah,
hopeful?
absolutely. So before I answer that question, I am international with a twist. So I was born in New York, but I grew up in Ghana. So I came in with an international mindset, but I had a passport. But I would say I have friends who are like pure international, like I would say. And the number one thing is you want to get a job in a big company that can sponsor. So as you're doing your recruiting, be super strategic, understand the companies that have the ability to sponsor international students and focus there. Because what I saw my friends go through that was very discouraging was you spend months talking to a company, you get an offer and they ask, hey, do you need a visa? And then you're like, yep, and then they drop you. So from the get, understanding what your sample set of companies are that can sponsor. Big tech typically sponsors because they have the structure and the money to like do that. Understand the companies that can do that. Leverage the iHouse to understand where alumni are and focus there. Be super focused, have a long runway, and prep, and also have a plan B of grad school. Because if things don't work out, you can always go back to school for another year as you reset the clock. So I'll say for international students, it's a bit of you have to understand the rules and the boundary conditions, and really be strategic about the companies you apply for, because getting a job is hard anyway. But as an international student, there's this additional hurdle of getting a job that will be able to sponsor your visa for you to stay in the country.
Great. So with that last question, I would like to thank everyone on the call, including our alum, Charles Wartenberg, for participating in this professional in residence event. This event was recorded, so we will have it on our YouTube playlist for you to look at maybe in a week or so after this event. And I put in the chat for those of you who have access to it. You can search for alum through LinkedIn, but as an alternative, we want to make sure that you know about the HERD, which is a mentoring database where you can look up alum based on affinity groups. So if you're interested in seeing the career paths of international students or people with a certain major, or even by keywords or interests that you have, certainly check that out. And if you haven't made an appointment with the Career Center and you're a senior, definitely go into your Handshake account and check off, make an appointment and follow the directions. And also a reminder that we are available in our career lab as well. So make sure you continue to check events because we will have 2 more professional in residences before the spring semester ends. And again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's session. Charles has graciously offered to send us the presentation. So make sure that, if you haven't registered, make sure that you show that you're registered for this event in Handshake, and I will send that out to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you.